Welcome to the Exponential Potential Podcast. Ignite your potential and thrive in times of great change with your hosts, Jennifer Evans and Claire Oatway. Join us and feel uplifted and inspired as we share with you powerful and insightful stories, top tips and tools with our expert guests on an array of topics covering all aspects of life and business, designed to ignite your potential and help you thrive in times of great change.
Hey, how are you?
I'm really well, Claire. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's just, the weather's okay. It's the UK. It's not Italy. But you know what? It's a beautiful time to be alive. So yeah. So Jen, we were trying to work out where to start in terms of our podcast adventures, and you came up with a great topic, which is where to start.
Yeah, I think where to start is whenever you're starting anything new or wanting to change anything. It's one of the hardest things I've come across when I try to start something new, when clients try to start something new, and I'm sure it's the same with you. It's like, well, where do I even begin? You might have an idea of where you want to go. You might not even have that idea, but you just know that you want something to change, or you want something to up level, or whatever that might be, or a new project. It's like, well, where do I begin?
Yeah, and so often when people start a journey with a coach, it's because they're stuck or kind of really stuck. And why is it? Why do we ask for help when we hit problems, and not just ask for help when we want to get to that next level? But you're absolutely right. That's when most people show up in terms of my services, is they're stuck, or something's not quite fitting, and they need some help and guidance to work out what it is.
Yeah, you kind of get that feeling. We were talking about discomfort, comfort zones and discomfort in our last episode, in our very first episode. And it's when we start to get uncomfortable in our comfort zone, when we start to get a bit antsy, or we know there's something more for us. We know that we just feel it I think before we feel it in our head, or we think it from a mental point of view, a logical point of view, we actually start to feel it in our bodies. Do you know what I mean?
That makes sense.
Yeah, you get agitated or antsy, or you just know that there's a point where I want something different, or I want, you don't know, maybe you don't even know what that is. So and how have you found, when you've been in that situation, Claire, what sort of things have come up for you? What feelings, or what have you noticed that starts to happen in your body or in your mind?
Well, very often I don't know that I would label it as anxiety, but kind of my head is just racing and darting between different topics, or second guessing what's going on, or just at times, for example, certainly in terms of my career path, I felt like a boredom or frustration, or just not in that place of thriving, and just kind of going, what next? Where do I go? This doesn't feel right anymore. And then my head kind of comes in with its own narrative about what's going on, and kind of about politics, or about what other people are seeing, or it creates a little bit of drama. But it's mainly because I'm at that next point of growth.
Yeah. You do. You get uncomfortable, don't you? You just It's like it's a little bit when I a little bit like ants in your pants. You remember we used to use that expression all the time as kids. Your mum, or not we did, but your mum or your dad would say, "You got ants in your pants," or your teacher. Oh my God, I used to get that all the time. Got ants in my pants, because you're like, I want to get on. I want to do things. but I don't know what.
Yeah. I think it's really helpful to bring that in, because it's almost permission for there to be this cycle. So many people, if you look at any of the bookshelves, you're full of books about be happy, be positive, thrive, everything else like that. and actually that will take you to a level, but you just naturally keep growing to the next level. So you have to go through these emotional ups and downs, and then it's great to put that in the context of, those are signals that you're ready to grow.
Yeah, I remember I know when it's ready, when I'm at a level to grow, I get that, like you say, I get like bubbles in my stomach, not quite anxiety, not butterflies, because butterflies, but this sort of discomfort and bubbling. Although my discomfort is my judgment on it. When I used to judge it. I used to go, oh God, I'm feeling anxious. But now I look at it and I'm like, okay, what's it? I've got this bubbling in my tummy. What's it's showing me there's something else now.
Yeah, definitely. And I love, I don't know if you know about Michael Neal's work as a super coach. So he's a global coach, and he has an analogy of a puddle, so a pool of water, and it being really muddy when it's agitated, and you can't really see what's underneath. You know that it's water, but it's murky. You're not sure what's going on. You're not sure what's going to happen next, and kind of when we're busy in our heads, we're like stirring that to go, well, what is all this about? What is all this about? And actually, he says, the best thing to do if you've got a puddle that is murky like that, just be calm and let that mud sit to the bottom. But kind of naturally, we're like, no, can't sit.
Yeah, and a lot of people, find it really hard to sit still. I mean, I have conversations all the time. I go, I can't sit still. I can't not just do anything. And I think, did you say that to me fairly recently, that in the past that you were very much like that you always have to be doing something?
Yeah, my husband says that about me all of the time. It's like, gotta do this. And sometimes it's that joy of being alive and kind of needing to fit everything in. But sometimes it is driven by restlessness, for sure, and ready for the next layer of growth. So let's how can people, if they're starting to feel that, what do you do next? How can you shift to actually make use of that energy and point it in a direction?
Yeah, well, firstly, just really want to clarify that when you feel those feelings, it's okay. We don't have to be happy all the time. We have to go through that ebb and flow, and there is certain discomfort, but that discomfort can come from our judgment on it. So judgment will be a whole new, that will be like 3 episodes or 5, that'll be probably 10 episodes on judgment. But so it's really acknowledging that becoming aware and conscious of, actually, there's something going on, I need to take notice. So that's really key, to be aware of that. And then, so what do you, so go on, sorry, Claire.
Is that before or after you buy the sports car? Or you have a massive blowout at the shops because sometimes it happens, doesn't it? You direct the energy to go, this is what's missing. I need a motorbike. That's clearly what I need.
Yeah. I need something to fill this void, or to help me feel happy again. Or no, you can, if you want. Hey, if that makes you feel good, great. Go out and buy a sports car or a Prada handbag, or Louis Vuitton, whatever it is. But it's good to notice that energy, and to then think about what it is you need to do with that, and how. And one of the things, and we've spoken about this when we're talking about creating this episode, what are the things that you can do to help ground yourself? Because that's what we really need to do, ground ourselves and create the space and room in our heads so that we can actually think clearly. And before we go on to what to do about that, I think I just want to touch on what happens when we do create room and space in our heads.
And words like ground might not, it's kind of, it might not be known by a lot of people, really.
Yeah, that's true. So what word would you use, Claire? Would you say
I know
balance?
it's just just to describe what you mean by grounds and grounding. Yeah.
So basically grounding, when we're in our heads, when we're too much in our heads, we can feel quite floaty. So grounding just means to really get in our bodies, get out of our heads, get in our bodies, and literally connect ourselves to the ground so that we feel balanced, more balanced, because that connection with earth, having your feet on the ground and breathing will just slow you down and help bring you back into your body and bring you more to the present. Yeah. So when we can create space and room in our heads, I know when I'm feeling overwhelmed, when I've got, and I still do, even years of what I've done and I still have times of overwhelm, but I know I have the tools to be able to go through that very, very quickly now. So when our heads are too busy, we do get overwhelmed. We get very busy in terms of how quickly we do things. You notice that as well, Claire? When our heads are busy, our bodies are busy, and we're rushing around doing things all the time. And when we rush around and do things, we drop things, we bump into things, we forget things, we can't think clearly. So when we take time, give ourselves permission to take time to create space and room in our heads, that's when we become open to receiving. And what I mean by open to receiving, ideas and solutions start to come without effort.
And I know from my own experiences that when you feel that overwhelm or when you feel discomfort, the judgment starts to come out, both of yourself and also of other people. So you're rushing around. You talked about dropping things, but your patience just drops as well, and you find the smallest fault and make it this biggest thing when it really isn't at all. But it's because something else is going on.
Yeah, and you become snappy, don't you, as well, and irritable. So there's all those frustration, irritable. Definitely. I know I sometimes occasionally do that with my partner Dominic, and I'm like, and that again is a sign of like, oh, actually, that's not okay. Not with the judgment, but not beating myself up. Again, it's a reminder of, oh, I'm being a bit snappy, I'm being a bit irritable, what's going on? So the positives and the benefits, more of the benefits is with a clear mind and space is, those ideas and solutions, but also gaining clarity. Yep. And when you've got clarity and you've got answers, so by clearing out your mind, you actually get the answers that you need at that time. And when you've got those answers and you've got clarity, then you also get confidence. Have you found, you know what I mean, Claire? When you've got that answer, I don't know whether you felt, if you're aware or you've noticed, when you feel an answer, it kind of, you get a little boost in your body, you get a boost of energy, and you get a boost of, it's an aha moment, really, isn't it?
It's a resolve. That's probably how I would describe it. And also kind of you're describing different kinds of energy, and when I kind of know the answer, it comes from much deeper down in my body. It's not here, it's there, it comes from there outwards. So and
you do lean forward, and you do lean into it, don't you? You're like, or you might sort of lift yourself up and go, I have that a lot in the shower. And a lot of people do, because one of the tips actually, when you are looking for answers, when you let go and you get present, and one of the places that's easy to get present is actually in the shower, because you're focusing on washing yourself and you're feeling the water, and your mind starts coming up with ideas and solutions. Do you find, I mean, it can be that you're worrying in the shower as well, but I find in the shower, one of the places I get a lot of ideas is in the shower. And a friend of mine's husband actually has a waterproof notepad. Yeah, you can actually, it's a thing, Claire. You can actually get a waterproof, like, it's something he can write on.
Yep.
And he writes his ideas in the shower.
It's crazy. That's crazy.
So that
I want to get me one of those.
Yeah, because your mind is distracted and it's because you're not forcing it.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And what is one of the things that you find really helpful when you want to come up with answers and solutions and ideas?
So it's probably not the same. This is subtly different as an answer, but I know, for example, that when my head's kind of full of fear or thoughts, so a typical example might be when I'm about to walk onto stage or about to talk to a big number of people, and kind of lots of ideas popping. I'm trying to remember what I'm trying to say. I'm kind of worrying about whether or not it's going to land appropriately, kind of all those organizational bits. And just to kind of bring back in, just to settle and breathe, that's when I notice a big difference, that when I stop and then move forward. And the same with meetings as well. So I used to be a terror for it. I used to rush around like crazy. I've developed a habit of being late, but it's not because I don't have respect for time. It's because I'm always trying to squeeze in a little bit more before I go. So I always turn up late to a meeting and drive through the city at crazy speeds to get there, and rush. My head would be rushing. But I developed a habit to just stop, breathe, reset, go forward. And it was transformational, really, in terms of how that meeting would go, because I would be fully present. And certainly one of the things that I advocate for, and again, I think we'll be covering this in a lot more detail in different episodes, but it's just around that moment when you stop and breathe. That's a perfect moment to set an intention, even if it's as small as a word. Confident, there, done. It's what I'm going to choose to be now. Yeah.
I found actually breathing is obviously quite important. But and we will talk about breathing in another episode, but when you breathe properly, that has been transformational for me too. And I see it every day. As working with clients, it's one of the first things we talk about, and giving yourself permission to actually slow down and stop trying to fit everything in, but breathing properly through the diaphragm, and just that will help slow your body down. It will help slow your thoughts down. It will help bring you clarity and ground you, bring you to the present. Yeah, and that's instant as well, isn't it, Claire? It's it's instant.
Yeah. It just puts you back in control in a way. Stops being here. It's like, cool, I'm here. And kind of we talked about how the shower is that moment of peace. And one of the things that I found is when I was busiest, that would be when I would wake up at 2:00 or 3:00, and there'd be like a genius. It's like, that's going to solve that problem. And I think it's because I hadn't been creating space during the day and the calm for that to come through, either in a writing practice or other practices. And that's when it comes out, because you're solving the problems all the time. You know what the answer is in here, but if you're too noisy,
you can't hear it.
Hear it.
Yeah, exactly. When your mind's too noisy, you're too busy, you won't hear it. And that's a really good point, actually, why people wake up in the middle of the night with ideas, because they haven't got the room during the day. So it's helpful. Did you used to have a notepad and paper at the side of the bed at all, or you just thought because I've done that in the past and then forgotten it in the morning. I'm like, damn, what was that? It will come back to me again, but
well, I did try that, but my handwriting's quite illegible at the best of times.
Yeah.
So.
Plus, you don't necessarily want to put the light. You don't want to put the lights on, do you? And really wake up.
So I try to kind of anchor with like one or two words, and it's like, okay, it's acknowledging the thought. And it's like, okay, I hear you, and then anchor that one word. So that's all I have to remember, and that starts to unpack it. But yeah. And just recently I heard so another big super coach I follow is Jeffrey Allen, and he does a lot of energy work, and he describes listening to intuition almost like listening to a friend. So if you're in an intimate setting, say at a table in a quiet cafe, you can hear each other, and there's a really warm connection. And then if you're on a bus, there's other stuff going on, but you can still tune in, but you have to more consciously tune in. But when you're at a rock concert, it's got no chance at all hearing that best friend. And so, kind of, I think the same's for, you know, a lot of the answers, but your head is way too busy, way too noisy. You know, it's like some kind of death metal group at times in my head, like noise. And you don't realize at the time how you're getting swept away in that until you stop and get a bit of peace.
And just start gently being aware of it. And I will just mention about judgment just now, because as we start to become more aware of our minds, we can get really judgmental and we can really beat ourselves up. So I think being gentle with yourself, in that rather than going, oh, my thoughts are going crazy again, and getting angry and frustrated, it's kind of going, there it goes again. Oh, well. It's kind of, oh, well, or just to be an observer of it, rather than get engaged and get involved and get angry with yourself, or say, I shouldn't be thinking those thoughts, or I need to do this, or I need to do that, and putting that pressure on. It's just taking a step back and going, oh, that's interesting, never mind, or oh, well, what do I need to do? And one of the things that I think, one of the easiest things for me, and everyone has something different, but for me, nature is my real go-to for peace and quiet. So I will go, even in COVID, when I'm being in Italy, we couldn't even go past, I think it was basically 1,000 meters. We couldn't go beyond our house more than 1,000 meters. At the beginning of COVID. And I love going out walking, so that I found that really hard. But what I changed it, and we're very fortunate, we are surrounded by nature where I live. So just sitting outside, or sitting, if it's if the weather's too cold or too wet, sitting by a window and just looking at a tree, for example. But the best is if you can get out for a walk, in nature, or near, even in a park, if you're in the city, in a park, and the more, and to get present. And it's difficult for people to get present because, again, the minds are constantly on the go. So the more you engage with your senses, the easier it is to become present. So when I'm walking, I, like stop and smell the roses. Literally, you'd start to take notice, and you're listening. What do you hear? What birds are you listening? Are you hearing the breeze through the trees? Your crunch on the ground? What are you smelling? That lovely earthy smell of, especially, depending on the time of year, but that lovely earthy smell, or that sweet smell of flowers in the spring and summer. What do you see? All the different shapes and colors, and noticing the little insects buzzing around. So the more you use your senses, the easier it is. And how do you feel? That I don't know about you, Claire, but I always get a real sense of peace when I'm in nature. It's like everything feels better.
Yeah. Yep. And even in a busy city, kind of, there are these small little oases of gardens or small parks, but even noticing the weeds coming up through the cracks and pavements and just going, yeah, here we are. I'm really glad that you pulled through the sensory elements, and kind of one of the tricks that I have with clients around this concept of positive intelligence and little mind hacks. And indulge me, try this one out, because this one will blow your mind. So you have two hands, and if you rub your fingertips down the fingertip or fingers of the other hand so gently, you can feel the ridges in your finger, in both fingers, just really, really gently, just for 10 seconds. It's like, just stop. And that's not an hour's meditation, it's not yoga, it's you can do that while you're making the tea. While you're waiting for the kettle to boil, just do that, and it just pulls all of your attention to that one space. If you really need a deep really deep relaxation, just close your eyes and then rub your fingertips down your face, and that's the equivalent of a bath for me. Just
okay. I've never tried. I've never tried that, but you're right. Even just doing that, I was so focused on doing that and feeling my fingertips against my hand, I completely forgot we were doing a podcast. It does. Yeah. It really brought me right to that. To really just engaged. My whole attention and focus was here. Completely mind. Yeah. That's awesome. I love
it. Quietens those little voices, doesn't it? Because you're focusing on that. They can come back to them. They'll still be there, but for this very second, you're here.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Might a bit odd in meetings though. Well,
you could do that you could do that with your hands in your lap. Well, pets are amazing to bring you to the present, aren't they? Engaging with your pets, that's another great way. But there are so many different ways and to create that space in your mind, and it is all about just bringing yourself to the present. So with that, you're totally in your body, aren't you? You're bringing yourself into your body. Yeah. So you're not in your head anymore. And it's interesting because we think that we need to be using our minds to create ideas and solutions. So we need that space and room in our minds so that the ideas, because as you said, we already have the answers. Yeah. It's just tapping in and tuning into those answers, and you can't do that with a really busy mind. Yeah. Something that you said was when you have a busy mind, what do you do when you've got a busy mind other than create space when there's lots and lots of ideas? Because this happens a lot as well. Yeah. When you've got loads of ideas coming through, or worries. What do you do with that, Claire? What have you found that really works for you?
Journaling is huge. It has such a huge impact, and kind of at a busy time or a really dark time, just letting it out, just expressing what's going on, you'll get creativity, or even if you'll get creativity, or you'll get clarity on what you're feeling, because you're giving space for those thoughts to come through, to be expressed, and you're releasing them. And you can look at them and you can use them or reject them, but again, it's your choice. So way that I describe it is, if you're writing, and if you're expressing some of those worries or concerns, you can see them on the paper and then go, well, that's not going to happen. But while they're in your head, they're bouncing around like little pinballs in a machine. and you just don't realize that they're there, whether they're in your head or whether they're on paper. It's going on. So at least be aware of what's going on, because it's written down, and then choose what to do with the thought.
I resisted. I resisted for the longest time of writing things down. I don't know what that was all about, and I know a lot of people do. I don't want to, I don't want to write. I don't want to create lists, or but the benefit of getting it on paper is it stops you. Then it's not going round and round and round in your head, bouncing around doing nothing. You've got it down on paper, so you've literally taken it out of your head and put it on paper, so that you can then take a better view on it, because it's there written down in front of you, and then you're creating that room and space in your head to have another idea come in. And when and the creativity, what you said about creativity, when we are creative, and we are, we become ideas and solutions orientated, we are creating possibility. Then we're activating possibility, because we can start to see, look at the possibilities of what our minds and our thoughts and our ideas. It's like, that idea is then activating another possibility. The thing that actually will uplift you and energize you, because that whole overwhelm and busyness, it also makes you, a little bit cranky, but it makes you really tired. It's exhausting. How many times you're like, oh my God, I just wish my head would shut the up.
It's like, you assume that it's on the back burner, and then you realize that actually instead of a 4-ring hob, you've got a 25-ring hob of things that you're juggling all at the same time, but not giving space to. It's just noise. Yeah.
And that's when things become hard and a real struggle. And we talked in the first episode about leapfrogging to create ease and flow, and creating space in your head and creating the room for those ideas and solutions to come to you effortlessly, because that's what happens. That's the leapfrog into the easy, that's leapfrogging to the ease and the flow.
That would have saved about a decade of my life, I think.
Mine too. Mine too. So, by creating ease and flow and releasing that struggle and pushing and hard work, we're creating more energy, so we feel more energized. I know when I've been really in my head and it's been too busy, or got very, very busy, it does really drain me. And when I go out into nature, that's my place where I go usually. There are lots of other things I do use, because I can't always go for a walk. It just totally re-energizes me. And sometimes taking a nap is what you need as well. Absolutely. I've done that in the past. A little afternoon 20-minute nap has done me wonders, but I don't need to do that anymore.
But also the joy of kind of describe actually physically being in nature, but listening to the sounds of the waves, or just being able to tune into that, to I think kind of being in nature reminds you that you're part of an overall system, part of this great big world. You're a small tiny piece. And also you look at things like trees have been around for hundreds of years at times. And so this worry, it's a speck of dust really, in terms of that landscape. So one of the things I love about nature is it just helps you feel small, and therefore helps those thoughts and worries feel minuscule.
It really helps you gain perspective, and we'll be talking a lot more about our connection with nature and the benefits of connecting with nature, and why it's so powerful, because it is incredible.
And those 10, so I mentioned these 10-second hacks. The other 10-second hacks I do is if I'm out on a general, I know it's just like you'll spend the whole time there. It's lush. But if you're out on a walk in a beautiful place, a 10 or 15-second video kind of, we were lucky enough to get away to Mallorca in the summer, and just a 15-second video from there, you can go back to it, and you can just be really present in that space, in that time, just watching the waves. So, and I often put these out on my Instagram as well. I was like, here, I just have some.
Yes. Yeah, I love recording the waves, or recording them. I do that a lot, actually, recording the sound, not even a video sometimes, just the sound. But or a photograph does it sometimes, but a video has a lot more power, because again, you're using more senses, aren't you? Yes. Hearing, seeing, and it puts you right back to that place. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm out of this place, I think.
Yes. Yeah. I think one of the biggest things is to allow yourself to do that as well. We feel it's ingrained in us that you have to push, it has to be hard work, you have to be busy, you have to, it's, it comes down to proving yourself and self-worth. But so the first step is where to begin is to really give yourself permission to take time, because when you do that, the contribution you make to others is, I found certainly, the contribution I can make by slowing down, by giving myself space and room, has exponentiated. I can't say it, Claire. Has exponentiated. Is that even a word? Exponentiated.
It is now.
It is. We made up a new word, but it has just. It's like, it's incredible. And that's, I had to allow myself that. I had to give myself permission. I didn't need anybody else's permission. I had to give myself permission to say, you know what? It's okay to slow down. In fact, you'll be more of a contribution than you could ever believe that you could be, running around chasing your own tail.
Slowing down to speed up.
Yes.
And it's so true, because when you do, you stop losing stuff, so you don't chase tail all the time.
Yes. You gain time.
Late, and then it's like, you do.
Yeah, you do. You gain time.
You don't waste time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
exactly.
Definitely.
Exactly.
And what I love about all of these suggestions is that they are each very small in terms of time. And there's a guy on Twitter called Naval, and he's a tech entrepreneur, absolute genius. But he advocates for 60 days of 60-minute meditations. Now, I don't know about you, but never in my life have I ever had the time to do a 60-minute meditation, let alone for 60 days on the trot. And it just sets you up to fail.
That's huge, isn't it? It's such a big, what's the word I'm looking for? Unrealistic for most of us to do that. Men find it a lot easier to meditate than women, because of the way their brain works. It's not because they're better or we're worse, it's just, and we'll talk about that in another episode, but the way men's and women's brains works very different. So men find it a lot easier to go into meditation. And so, putting this pressure on, I've got to do a 20-minute or a half an hour of meditation. No, you don't. Like you say, just that. It's just slowing down, getting in your body, sitting and looking at nature, or going for a walk in nature, or by the sea, or, looking up at the sky, watching the clouds. And if you're an active person, for some people, gaining space, maybe going for a run, or a bike, going for a bike ride. But when you are doing those things, it's to really bring your focus to where you are, to get yourself present, rather than going for a walk with your friend, which is nice, but then you talk about all the problems in the world and you haven't actually solved anything. So going for a walk by yourself is really, really beneficial. I used to choose, so I used to walk my dog every day, and I used to choose that I would walk with a couple of friends quite frequently, but then sometimes I'd take a different route because I wanted the peace and quiet.
Yeah. I get
yeah
that.
yeah
I
so
understand that truly and deeply. So yeah, this just feels like a natural way to start, and it feels like it's something that is free and easy, and kind of just, helps you to start to regain or deepen control.
yes,
Control's maybe not the right word, but kind of, it's your choice.
It is part of control, though, isn't it? You feel in control when you create space in your mind. Absolutely, you do, because you feel totally the opposite when you're not. So yeah, I think a lot of people want that feeling of control, and it does bring a sense of control and a sense of a deep sense of peace the more you do it, and calm. It's a great way to calm the mind.
Oh, wonderful. No, this has been a really great and practical episode, and quite permissive as well. So I've really enjoyed today, Jen.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I can't wait for the next.
Yeah. So next week we are talking about, we're talking about discovering what you want and what you don't want. Because at the beginning of this episode we were talking about what it is you want, when you start to feel that antsiness, and then it's determining what you really want. Yeah, because that can be quite foggy. Yeah.
Or what you really, really want.
What you really, really want. Oh God, don't even go there. Brilliant.
For now, it's really great to catch up, and I'll see you again soon.
Claire. Okay. Bye. Thanks very much, everyone. Bye.
Thank you for listening. We'd love to hear your comments and feedback. And if you've enjoyed it, please click on that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and feel free to share. Join us for our next episode of the Exponential Potential Podcast. Ignite your potential and thrive in times of great change.